Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Talk the Ting, Season 2, Episode 2. Tonight's going to be a little bit of a different show. We're not going to have any guests. We're not going to have any major guests in terms of, um, individuals who are going to come on and talk about their life. It's mainly going to be us with any guests who want to come on and talk about their life, talk about the experiences with Black History Month, certain things that they want to talk about in terms of what they've learned, even moving to the United States from other countries or moving away from the United States. Um, so we want to make sure that, we have a great show tonight. And, if you guys want to chime in, if you guys want to share your experiences, you guys are welcome to join us on the Zoom. You don't have to put your video on. There's ways to come on the Zoom with just your audio if you want to talk about certain things and your experiences, certain things that you maybe went through um, as a black person, or even if you're not a black person and you understand about Black History Month and the history of black people in this country and the world. We welcome your feedback. We welcome your comments on the live. Um, Couple quick announcements before we move forward. Unfortunately, Rajiv is not with us right now. We hope that he'll be able to join us a little later, but something came up, so it'll be a little delayed. But other than that, Hadley, what's your experience with Black History Month, and what's your knowledge of it? What do you remember growing up in Dominica? And then moving here. Your thoughts on Black History Month.
Okay, well, first of all, let me say good evening to our listeners who always come on religiously and check us out and talk the thing with us. Happy Black History Month to everybody out there. For me, Black History Month was something that I found out about in high school. In high school, at ITSS Isaiah Thomas Secondary School. It's something that I found out about there, and we had little events more or less centered around you know slavery, more education on slavery and how um how our ancestors eventually got to the Caribbean, what they went through, and during slavery, and also how they got out of slavery. And it was almost like a mini, like an independence celebration, because I remember that was one of the times, apart from independence, where that event we had a lot of local food in school. And we did something similar to independence celebration, but we sometimes we had some African printed shirts. And I remember one time a crew of us, we had a whole bunch of Rastafarian printed shirts and bandanas. So for me, that's when I was really exposed to what Black History Month was. As to up here, it's a kind of a different story. But I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, man. I mean, for myself, I it's not something that I really thought about too much. Before I moved to the states. I didn't know too much about it. Um, but after moving here, being exposed to learning about American history, and quite interestingly, right? A lot of times American history is not necessarily thought of as Black history, right? But if you go back and do some reading and you watch some documentaries or you listen, you know that black people had immense impact an immense impact on America, right? From slavery days, where it was not voluntary to today. Um, so we have to always remember that number one thing I feel like we have to remember is that we are not inferior as black people to any other race. We are just as important, if not more important. Oh, I see some people commenting on my jersey there. Watching until Dwayne removed the ridiculous jersey. Oh, come on, man. Stop it. They're having a little bit of technical difficulties with his camera there, but it's interesting. I found out the other day about the origin of Black History Month and how it started. And I'm gonna share an article with you guys over in the chat. If you guys want to, read it, I'm gonna send it over in a little bit in the chat. It's quite interesting to learn about these things and how it comes about. Now, sometimes we have the issue of thinking that you know um us as black people, we have to help ourselves, and we don't want to allow people from other races and stuff to um come into our business, I guess you could say. But it's just as important, I think, to educate people about our history, not be ashamed to talk about our history, right? um so I just posted an article in the not really article, it's more of like a small documentary in the chat, talking about the origin of Black History Month. It's quite interesting. So Black History Month basically came from Harlem. It was sort of started because the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln was both in the second week of February, I think. So that inspires schools and communities, around the country to organize, celebrations and stuff like that, establish clubs, and begin, education stuff and trying to get people to understand what Black history was about. Um, so that was kind of like how it started. And then further down, I think in the 1940s, President Ford was the one who actually officially recognized Black History Month. I think that was in 1976. And his words were he wanted to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. Um, it's very much um a big deal, right? So us as Black people, you know, do we embrace what we know? Do we embrace our culture? Do we embrace um learning more about our culture? You hear so many things about, I know hardly hear about them things, like you hear a black man invented the traffic light. You hear a black man was the one who invented the filament in the bulb, right? And you don't hear a lot of these things. You don't see these things in the history books. Um, but it's very much us as black people trying to push our own history, right? And letting people know that we're not inferior to them in any kind of way, right? So what do you guys think? I mean, we have a small number of people watching so far. What do you guys think about Black History Month? Do you guys think some? Because some people don't even agree with having a Black History Month. A lot of people feel like it marginalizes our accomplishment only to 1 month, right? I was listening to a podcast this morning, and a lot of rappers. I know this rapper Talib Kweli. He doesn't necessarily agree with a Black History Month. He thinks that it just kind of confines us to February, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with. I think it's great that it's actually officially recognized. But what are we doing during Black History Month, and not just for that one month, for the other months of the year? What are we doing to push our history? What do you think, Hadley?
Well, I don't really see an issue with it being in February. As you said, there was a particular reason why February was chosen. It wasn't that, hey, they want a month, let's give them a month. Because I remember people saying, oh, they let black people have February because it's the shortest month in the year. Um, and I don't think it confines everybody. It's just that time where you would maybe find, let's say, a little extra emphasis being placed on black history and black culture, but I don't think it's that one month that will lead people to only think about what black people went through and think about black culture only during that one time. So, but I mean, he has his points of view. I don't think that's what it does. For me is as long as black people keep doing what they think is necessary to further the black culture and keep teaching not just black people but everybody about black life and things like that. I don't think it will ever be people will ever be put in that bottle of, hey, just February. But again, he has his point of view and he might be making sense, but that's just how I see it. I don't think it bottles the black culture into one month.
But growing up, right? I mean, in the Caribbean, apart from Black History Month, who do you, for you, Hadley, who was one of the most, I guess, famous or influential people growing up? And you had to think like, oh man, this person is a big deal. Like, I know you was heavy into music, so it might be a musician or somebody like that. But you know, who
I
was that
mean,
person?
every Caribbean person who likes music or was inspired by music cannot speak without calling the name of Bob Marley. And like I said, I remember black back in the day when we celebrated Black History Month in school, like a lot of us would dress in Rastafarian stuff. Like we would have the Lion of Judah on our shirt, or we would have the Ides Gold and Green rag. So for me and for us, I can say for a lot of us Caribbean people, our Black History Month's focus was centered around somebody like Bob Marley, maybe Marcus Garvey. Like for Caribbean people, I think that's who it was because these were the most popular people in. He was one of the most popular persons back in the day. So for me, it was always about Bob Marley and celebrating like what he did because he wasn't just a musician. Like a lot of people think Bob Marley was just a musician. Bob Marley is the reason why there is some level of political unity in Jamaica right now.
Mhm.
And I think he is also the reason why it's happening in the Caribbean. There's no civil war and political parties are not having people kill each other like before. He's the reason why Caribbean music in general is being respected all over the world. Maybe not as much as we want, but Bob Marley is the reason why Caribbean culture is out there. So for me, that was my that was the guy that I looked at during that month, Black History Month.
And I remember quite a few names. I mean, just on our island itself. I mean, at the time I was born in the 80s, so but Dame Eugenia Charles, right, the first female president in the Caribbean, right? It was a
Prime
black
Minister,
woman.
Prime Minister.
I mean, I say president for them. I America too long, man. Prime Minister, right? Um, it was there were quite a few people in terms of music. You had people like Sparrow. You had people for calypso and social commentary, right? They had so much of a major impact
Yeah.
on the Caribbean, right, on a whole. And we all know the Caribbean is heavily influenced by America. So even America, you hear about Martin Luther King, and you hear about You know who I just found out about not too long ago that I was listening to a podcast, and I'll share that podcast with you guys. It's called American Scandal, and there's a series
That's
on.
one of the best podcasts out there right now.
Yeah, man. There's a series on. Um, oh, we have somebody who wants to join in with us. Let me just admit them into the Zoom. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me? Hold on.
Oh, loud and clear.
Okay.
What's up,
Hey,
Nicole?
Hey,
hey. What's going on, Nicole?
all right. How you guys doing?
We're good. We're good. How
We're
are you?
doing good. We're doing good.
I'm good. I'm hanging in there. So what's
Yeah,
up?
man. We're talking about.
I couldn't hear some of it because I was switching over, so I might have missed some stuff.
Oh, okay. I was just talking about the American Scandal podcast and the well, Nicole knows about that, so we're gonna talk about it a
What
little bit.
the one
The
about
series, yeah, the series with Fred Hampton and MLK
yeah.
and Billie Holiday. And I drive it into work listening to that sometimes, and I'm like, man, I say, well, black people already go through things in this country, boy. I say, like just people just want to sing, express themselves, talk about, and if you relate like the Billie Holiday stuff to, let's say Calypso in the Caribbean, right? I mean,
Mhm,
that's what happens in Calypso, right? People just basically talk about society through music,
mhm,
and
Yep.
she was trying to do that, and so many things up to the highest levels of government were trying at the time were trying to keep her out of it. They tried so many ways to eventually, I guess you could say they eradicated her in some kind of way. But
mhm.
her impact that she left, the bravery that these people showed, knowing that their lives were in danger back in those days, was remarkable. Some of these people you never even hear about them. Some of these people you hear about them, but a lot of them you don't. You know, I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Nicole? I mean, I know you know about the podcast and
Yeah.
the story.
Well, I think if you think about just musicians in general, that came up during that time, a lot of them, they tried to sing songs or play music that was about the struggle at least at some point in their career, usually when they got established. That's when they felt like they could say something, and they would get ostracized for it. The government would start tracking them and bugging them, and you know using people around them that were friends with them, which is what that movie about Fred Hampton is going to be about. It's really
Hmm.
about how they were able to infiltrate the Black Panther Party using black people by looking for some criminal charge or some petty crime they may have committed and using it against them so that they could be informants against their own people. And that still happens. None of that is
Yep.
Yeah,
none of that is
yeah,
different.
Still
All of that
happens.
yep,
happened. Yeah.
yep.
And I think you said something before about, is Black history needed, or people like Talib Kweli are against it, and I understand why he's against it. I mean, he's about the Pan-African movement in general, so he doesn't want Black history to be some small speck in the
Hmm.
grand history of the diaspora.
Hmm.
So I get it, but then he's also an artist and he wants people to watch him, so he's going to be a little bit more sensationalized in his point of view. Like he's been blocked a few times from Twitter for, making people upset. So I understand why he says those things. And I also understand why he would be mad about February being Black History Month, even though he knows the reason why. There's some people that are upset with some of the historians of the past and how they approached dealing with civil rights.
Hmm.
Some people didn't like, they felt like they had to choose. Do I like Malcolm? Do I like Martin? Do I like the Black Panther Party? Do I like the preachers? And
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen because Black people are not monolithic, right? Some of us want to be more out in front of it and protest, and some of us want to work it from the inside
From the
and
inside
do it
out. Yep.
however you got to do what's best. But I think you're always going to find people who are like, it's every month. Well, I think it should be every month, but the reality is that it's not. So because it's not, February is the way to really say, to remind you that you're leaving us out of the history.
Yeah.
No, it's like now you have to talk about us for a month, and you still see people in other parts in all over the country that will say, "Oh, I don't want my kids to learn about Black history during Black History Month," even though it's just for the 1 month. They're going and petitioning
Yep.
their government and saying they don't want that.
Yep.
Um, I think it's important for us to talk about the accomplishments of Black people, but I also think we should talk about all things that Black people do from everywhere, because once you come to this country, you're just Black. So
Yeah.
I think Black history
Yep.
should encompass the accomplishments, the struggles, the difficulties of all Black people. Even the ones who don't understand or don't know the whole history of America. All of them should be highlighted. Not just you know Garrett Morgan or Jan Masslinger or those inventors, but because some of those people were Caribbean people. You
Yep.
don't know it because they don't talk about it, but talk about the Calypsonians and the reggae artists, and because all of those people at some point buck up against the system and face racism, and you hear it in their music at some point, or you see it in their art form at some point in their career.
I mean, you think about Hadley mentioned Bob Marley, right? And I mean, Bob Marley did not even live in America, right? I mean, he spent a lot of time here, but he didn't live here, right? And
Bob Marley
it's pretty
never
well
liked America.
it's pretty well documented that the government, the U.S. government, did a lot of things to try to keep him quiet, because
Yep.
of what the message in his music, right? Um, it's and then the other thing is, I always think about it where I say, you know, when will we get to the point where we feel that um we could really like trust each other and look out for each other? Because it always feels like, yes, we get to a certain point, a lot of us get to certain points, but while there's maybe one black person trying to bring you up, is like, okay, there's like another one or two trying to keep you at a certain level, or like we talk about each other, the comments you always get is that, people think that they're better than each other because they maybe speak properly, or they're from a certain area or whatever it is. um all those things, and I don't know, man. I mean, more, I remember watching that movie, um 12 Years a Slave. I cried when I saw that movie, because I say, boy, these people have gone through so much, and just as something as simple as voting. You listen to so many people say, well, I'm not gonna vote. I say, like, people lost their lives fighting for the right for this, for us to do it. Like, it wasn't something that everybody just had the ability to do, right? Women couldn't vote, black people couldn't vote. you know I like having the conversation with white people, honestly, about, like, I'll be sitting in an office with them and I'll say, dude, are you aware that like 60, 70 years ago, like, you and I couldn't sit in this room together? Like, it's not that long ago, like, when you really think about it. And I was listening to an interview with Dan Rather, the former CBS anchor, and they were asking him about his career and stuff. It was with David Axelrod, and he was saying that he's seen so many things change in America, but he's seen so many things stay the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, he said that, he never thought in his life that he would see a black president because of the level of racism he saw in the 50s and the 60s in the South, right? And he lived to see that, which is great. But so many things are still, you know, systematic, right? And people act like it's not, right? So, we have a lot of work to do, man. And trying to, I feel like, educate a lot of the people about, the struggles that black people have been through is important, right? And we talk about empathy, right? This is a conversation I've had with so many people. I feel like a lot of Americans don't have any empathy. They don't think about anybody but themselves until
Hmm.
something happens to them or their family. Then everybody thinks it's the worst thing ever.
It's
I mean,
interesting.
you don't have to look much further further than COVID, right?
It's
I mean,
interesting that you
a lot of
said
people
that
thought it was fake. You know?
because Megan, there was a story going on that Megan McCain, John McCain's daughter,
That's a good story.
she she started talking about the importance of paternity leave for women in America
Mhm.
after she realized that she wanted it. She had a baby, and people were like, "Yeah, kind of hypocrisy, because
Yeah.
you've been in a party that's been against that for so many times, and it's interesting that you say that only when it happens to you, that's when we need it. But
Yep.
for me, I moved here in 2012, and one thing that I've noticed, I went to a HBCU, and I don't think that even the black community teaches the young blacks enough about black people, about black history. Like I went to an HBCU, and when I took history classes, it was always about the slaves getting to America. That's what I always learned. How did the slaves get to America? And then it stopped there. So to me, it was almost about like never forget what they did to us. But I never learned in those history classes what did we do to get out and who we are right now. We would be reading books in school
Mhm.
written by, for example, I remember reading one book that I read from cover to cover. It was Sula by Toni Morrison.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, I went to look at some of her other books, and I'm like, yo, she has so many books. That was the book where I realized that I can love somebody and not like them, right? Because this woman, she had a daughter that pissed her off every time, and she had issues with the daughter's dad, and she said, I love you but I don't like you. you know but yet still nobody knew who Toni Morrison was. If I had not read that book, I wouldn't learn about all those books that she wrote about black culture and black life and being in a black community. Like I feel that you don't learn that, especially in an HBCU, and I feel that that's
Wait, hold
something
on.
that
Wait, hold on. What HBCU did you go to?
I went to Morgan State University in Baltimore. Yeah, so it's like I was always learning about. You see my jersey, Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, so maybe, and I know I wasn't asleep, but it was a lot about slavery,
Yeah.
and I think not enough about um getting out of slavery and progressing into where the black community is today. So
You
for
might not
me,
have taken that class.
huh?
You might not have taken that class.
Man, I took so many, like, I had no choice but to take so many classes, though. So many history classes.
I don't know. I didn't go to Morgan.
Yeah, you didn't.
But I mean, I didn't go to HBCU, I guess, but whatever. Um, Listen, at the end of the day, I feel like I mean,
Hmm.
I feel like conversations need to be had. It's sometimes it's tough conversations. Like after George Floyd unfortunately lost his life, and a lot of companies came out and started doing, different things, encouraging certain conversations, and if you're in a position of any kind of leadership at your job, um, as a black person, right, it can be very challenging because sometimes you have a lot of people of different races who work under you, and you know, sometimes a lot of people, not just white people, but black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, they don't feel like they are qualified to speak on certain things, right? They don't feel like they have been through enough, to talk about certain things. And um but these conversations are those conversations I love having, right? I remember speaking to a guy. I just started my MBA program, and I was speaking to one of my classmates. just giving him a little rundown on, because every chance I get, I always saw Dominica. Every time, oh, I'm from Dominica. I'm from Dominica. Not DR, not DR. So we're talking to him, and then we end up getting into like a little bit of my life story and how I ended up coming here and stuff. And he stopped me. He's like, "Man, you should do a blog, bro. Like this is crazy." So I was like, "A blog for what?" Like I don't need to do a blog. It's like my story is not like that unique. Like, and I went through, some little tough things when I came here, but I know other people who've been through a lot worse, but at the same time, it was interesting to see his reaction. I'm thinking, oh, it's not a big deal. And this guy's like, yo, this is crazy. He's dropping all these names, Howard Stern and even Rush Limbaugh. He's saying like, what is he? I mean, the guy, he admitted, he said, I'm a Republican, whatever. But he's like, what is Rush Limbaugh really talking about? Nothing. It's all garbage. Like
Trash.
he told me that, So, it was interesting because, and then we got into the whole conversation about empathy and it's interesting because I always try to listen to people when they talk and when they don't talk. Like when certain conversations come up, I watch to see like who really, will say something and who won't. Because sometimes the people who don't talk tell you more, right? Than the people who actually say something. So I don't know, man. I feel like it's I don't want to say it's a battle. It's a journey that we will maybe be on until we die. It just
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
be a non-stop thing. We cannot expect that things will change overnight.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of us just need to, when we get into the position of being able to help people that look like us to do it, right? I mean, networking. I'm not ashamed to say when I started my program at my job, I was maybe one out of 3 or 4 black people out of 30 something.
Hmm.
And the black people were the last people to talk to me. Like is and then I don't know if it was
Mm.
on purpose, but
Mm.
it's just weird. Like you go in and you see certain, but then guess what? Once we start talking and I say, hey, I'm from the Caribbean and blah blah blah, then the person say, oh, I'm from Trinidad, oh, my family's from Antigua, is this is that. And then you realize like you have so much in common and then you're hanging out and all that. But the first inclination is not to walk up to the black person and be like, yo, what's up? Because you
Well,
don't really know what you're gonna get.
I th- I think
Like
I think for some strange reason, um, Caribbean people who migrate to the United States are somewhat seen as a threat to the born black man in the United States. I've had a lot of friends who told me that they had it was easier for them to make a white friend
Hmm.
when they moved to the United States than a black friend. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Until I came up here
Hmm.
and my first 2 friends was a white girl and and her white gay friend.
Hmm.
And I was like, am I missing something? Like all these other people look like me and like nobody is like, hey, what's up? But this white girl and this white guy
Hmm.
talks to me and I realized what we had in common was we were sort of out of place even if I had the same color. We came like they're coming because they're white, but we were transfer students. And I've had people who said, for example, I remember my wife saying that she stood up in the class and she introduced herself. She's like, my name is whatever, whatever, and I'm from Dominica. And this girl in the back was like, and the professor was like, what's wrong? Oh, I don't like Caribbean people.
Hmm.
And then the professor was like, why do you not like Caribbean people? Because this Caribbean woman took my mother's job. So it's like we're constantly seen at first to be a threat. I remember being in class
Hmm.
and meeting one of my professors and told him, hey, I have an idea as to how we can better do this equation in class. And then he was like, oh, it actually makes sense. And then he goes and he shows it to the class one day that I ended up being late. And then he told them that, oh, that's something Hadley showed me. Let's see if it works. I wish he hadn't called my name because after class, the Jamaican girl pulled me and she's like, "Yo, a lot of the black kids were mad because you told the professor and he said it was you and you think you know everything." So for a very long time, I
Mhm.
was seen as the threat,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of black people kind of stay away from. I remember saying that even if I'm black, I don't really identify with the Black Lives Matter movement. I remember saying that until sadly, when this St. Lucian guy was shot by the cop, whether it was a mistake or not, and I'm like, yo, this affects us too. So I hope they don't really see us as a threat, and I hope they see us as an ally, because I know there's a lot of people who really experienced that moving to the US, that black people was like, nah, you're not one of us. And I think the reality is that we are, you know.
You know, an interesting point, right? So I was telling a guy at work the other day. Um, Somebody said, I hate when the person said, I hate when I hear people who are born here tell me they're from Trinidad. I hate that. I say, why? I don't like it. So I said, bro, I meet all these guys.
Say that again. Say that again.
You know, like when, like, so let's say, like, I have a kid, the child, born in America, and but the child grew up loving, Caribbean food and culture and everything. And so when they meet somebody, they don't say they're American. They say, well, I'm from Dominica. But then you say, well, were you born there? And they go, no, I was born here, And I say, bro, let me ask you a question. All these Italian guys I see here who tell you that they're Italian, but they six and seven generations out of Italy, they don't hide the fact that they don't hide their ethnicity, I guess, if you want, if that's the word. They don't hide where they come from, right? So what's the problem? Why are we so quick when we come here to say, well, you know what? All right, I don't have to say that I'm from a certain place. Why?
Hmm.
Why? Because other people don't do it. You don't meet, and that's one thing. I listen. Even within the Caribbean, we have our own little thing. We think Jamaicans are this, we think Trini are that, and people think small islanders are this and that. But one thing I love about Jamaicans is they do not care.
Nah,
Don't care where they go. They don't care who they're around. They're Jamaican, and they will not change their accent. They will not add the H. They will remove the H. They don't care.
Jamaicans
I
and
love that.
Trinis.
I love it, man. This guy working with now the man in America for 40 something years. I say, dude, you sound like you literally just come from Jamaica. Like,
But I, but I
it's
think
crazy.
part of it has to do with the fact that these two Caribbean islands, Jamaica and Trinidad, I think they've cemented themselves all around the world so well that, like, for example, everybody likes a Trini accent. Everybody likes a Jamaican accent. So there's no reason for them to try to water it down or anything like that. Whereas for us, like, everybody like, where you from? Because I'm hearing an accent, but they know it's not a Jamaican accent. They know it's not a Trini accent. So they're like, where are you from? But if a Jamaican come to talk to you, like, they don't have to ask. They actually understand how the Jamaicans talk. So I think it's about these people really making their presence
Hmm.
known worldwide, whereas a lot of other Caribbean countries, uh, they either haven't done it or they haven't gotten the opportunity to do that. So that's why a lot of people will say, you are Jamaican.
Hmm.
I remember in school playing some compa music from that guy, artist Alan Cavey.
Hmm.
And there was a Haitian guy. He was there the entire semester, hasn't said a word to me. And then he heard me playing Alan Cavey and it's like, Sac passe haïtien. And I was like, I'm not a Haitian dude, but I know Alan Cavey personally. And he's like, what? You know Alan? And I'm like, yeah, I played drums for him back home in a show, and that's why I have his music. So it's like, I don't know, it feel like you almost have to show them who you are before you accept that. I don't know.
Well, I think the system is operating as designed. It's
Right.
it's designed specifically for you to be for Black people to be fragmented in that way. So, like, when you came here and you felt like you had more in common with the white students, and because the American Black people were like, we don't like you because you're taking our jobs. You know, where do they get that from? They didn't get that from
Mm.
their people.
Yep.
They didn't come up with that on their own. That is
True.
the way the system is designed with that narrative so that you feel like a threat. Because when you're fighting, then they're doing whatever it is that they're doing to make sure that the system operates accordingly.
Right.
So I think the whole you're coming to take our job thing, there's some truth to it only because the reason why immigration is the way it is for skilled people, right? When they're allowing other people to come into the country, the motivation is we need skilled labor, whether it's doctors, lawyers, technicians, whatever, right? And we need them internationally. I think if more people just kind of understood how the system worked, then you wouldn't even have to have all of those like little petty arguments and discussions, because the reality is the only reason Black people can come to this country from other islands is because of the civil rights movement. If that didn't happen, then there would be no opportunity for those countries to come here. And to the point about Jamaica and Trinidad, all of that also is motivated by countries like America because they have heavy influence over those countries because of what they're able to get from those countries. So for Trinidad, it's the oil and the natural gas, and from Jamaica, it was the bauxite and whatever it was
Yeah.
whatever they raided the countries for. So their influence is what creates the narrative. There was a time when people thought everyone who had an accent was from Jamaica,
Yep.
right? And then over time, as the Caribbean islands come and they get into the workforce, more and more of them, then people start to learn like, oh, there are other countries, because the United States, North America is very Western centric. They don't really care about learning about other cultures. So that's
Yep.
part of American culture. So part of American culture is to be ignorant to anything that's not American.
It's not
So you're
American. Yep.
gonna so you're gonna have, that kind of infighting amongst the Black groups too, because American Black people are gonna feel like, yeah, you did come to take my job, because when they see us as both Black, but you have more skills than I do that I wasn't afforded the opportunity to get because my family's been here since slavery. Or even if I had Caribbean heritage, my parents came over since the 40s and 50s, so they just got lumped into the segregation
Yeah,
and
I get what you're saying.
era. So and then the other thing is, I think, is Caribbeans, or not just Caribbeans, Black immigrants, period, or even Asian immigrants. The goal is to assimilate to the place that you're coming to live in, and you're coming here for opportunity. You're not really coming here for education. A lot of times you've been educated where you came from, a good one, probably a
Yep.
better one than what you're getting when you come here. So when people are coming for opportunity, then that kind of, their goal is, I need to make this money, and I need to assimilate to whatever the culture is. So if you're coming to assimilate to the dominant culture, and the dominant culture is white culture. Whatever the people that have all the money say, that's what the culture is going to be. So you're gonna probably have more in common with them. You probably listen to music by more white artists, even though you might listen to, Caribbean music, reggae, whatever, jazz. You probably have listened to a lot of white music in the Caribbean because they play it on the radio, right?
Yep.
Especially during the 80s and
On the
90s.
On a
TV.
on a
You
on
know,
a
on
on a
TV.
Sunday afternoon.
Right, that's what you're listening to. When you grow up here, you don't you're not inclined to do that because you're trying to set yourself apart from the culture that's oppressing you, or you feel that it's oppressing you, right? So then Black Americans may be more inclined to listen to hip hop music because of what it represents for them. And before hip hop, it was jazz music because that was their music, and gospel and all of the music that came out of those eras. That was music that was anti white establishment. So, all of that feeds the division. It's not on purpose. It's like when you grow up a certain way and your family tells you, don't mess with those people. They came to steal your jobs. And on the flip side, like my parents, like, don't mess with the American black people because they don't go to school. They're not smart, right? It's the same. You hear it
Yeah.
on both sides. And until you've been here or have children here for a couple of generations, then you see how the system is operating as designed.
Yeah, and I guess that's what Dan Rather was talking about, right? It's a lot has changed where you have a lot of black people, and I don't say a lot, but a decent amount of black people in prominent positions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's still very much the same, right? It's still very much where you know sometimes I sit and think. I say, how do I know? Like you were saying, how do I know Phil Collins? like
Right.
I know all of the man's songs, like Kenny Rogers, like all those people, like it's weird, and I find myself thinking about these things a lot. It's really, we have somebody else who wants to join. Hold on, let me just get them in here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just get them in here. Connecting to audio. Yeah, so it's really, I feel like we just need to keep working. We just need to keep working. Dexter, what's up, man? Can you hear us?
Green,
What's up, man?
greetings and salutation, my brother.
Yes, man. What going on?
I did,
Aside.
I did. I cooling out.
Yeah, man. What's up? What's on your mind?
Nothing, no, my brother. You tell me tune in, I tune in. I
No,
watch you. I tune
well, you right now
You
you on the live
you
video.
on the
So
live, you know.
right now,
in.
what
Okay.
give us your 2 cents about the Black History Month fan. What you think?
He boy. They just put me on the spot, eh? Celebrate black, man. Let's just celebrate black. Let's be true to self. You know, we are rich people. We
Hmm.
foundation people. So let's just be self. You know what I mean? Be proud of our culture. Be proud of our food, our fig, or how and so. Our patois. You know what I mean? But we can also be in the board meetings
Yeah,
and
man. Yeah, man.
places as well. So just celebrate that, man.
Right.
Yeah, man.
All
Yeah,
in the
man.
food, you.
It's funny. Yeah, but it's cold outside, my brother. Right now, that man, I don't gonna put your business outside, but I jealous.
I, 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 I.
I jealous. I jealous. But yeah, man. But thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Keep on doing your thing. Keep on doing your thing. I wasn't even sure what the discussion was, what the content is. I say you put a live, so let me just come and see what happening.
Yeah, man. We Black History Month we say, let's come on and just have a discussion about, what we know about it, the impact, that is had, and what do we need to maybe continue doing as Black people, whether we born here, we move here, whatever it is. The fact is we're here, right? So we have to
Yeah, man.
kind of figure out how we keep going, right? I mean, a lot of us have kids in America, right? In the American system, so we have to figure out, we don't want our kids to grow up, being ashamed to be who they are.
Right.
So, we have to just kind of keep it pushing, man.
Yeah,
But man, we have a few people joining.
my daughter is about to turn 17. She was born up there, and we just had that discussion, and in my view is be yourself. They have to be themselves. Like I was saying, it's fig we like on Saturday morning with our bakes and our kako. And that's cool. You know what I mean? That's cool. That's cool. And they like our food, and we can take that cuisine can be taken anywhere. We can go on any stage and make people taste that. And we know they're going to say that it's good. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's good. So yeah, be self, and then just listen to that voice, that voice from inside, that tell us how to move and when to move. But yeah, but
Mhm.
Black History, man. Black.
Yes, man.
All right, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for
Yes,
joining,
sir.
man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Chrissy, what's up?
Hi, I'm good.
So what's your thoughts on the Black History Month? And I know you're a pretty eloquent young lady. I know you have some thoughts. So let's hear it.
Yeah, lots of thoughts. I would say I know there's a big conversation on if we still need to have Black history. I think we're a long way from not having Black history. I mean, it's a nice dream to think that this should just be history. It hasn't been history for many years, right? There's so many things, like you're saying, that we are learning now as adults that has not been shared in the textbooks or mentioned. I'm learning things every day, especially during Black history, of just things that have just been missing about Black excellence and Black contributions, and even from Black people, keeping Black people out of the movement for whatever reason, because it didn't look good that way or it didn't fit with their politics that way. So I think we definitely need to keep shining a light on Black history, and maybe February is just the highlight, but definitely something we should be doing for generations to come is teaching them about their culture, about the history of slavery, yes, but also about Black contribution and excellence, and inspiring confidence and good things in our young people to come.
Yeah, man, that's a pretty important point. I mean, like you said, we have a lot of us have kids, young kids growing up in America, in this system that a lot of us maybe didn't go through, but you know,
Sure.
we all know, I mean, I hear these stories of a lot of people who move here at young ages and some of the stuff that they had to go through, especially when they move to predominantly white areas. And, kids can be mean, right? So kids say a lot of mean things, and, you have an accent, and you look different and you talk different. And,
Your hair
but,
rough.
can I touch your hair and all that kind of stuff, like go back to Africa, all them kind of thing, and but to be quite honest though, I feel like even us within the Black community need to do a better job though, amongst ourselves,
Mhm.
right? Because very few people are brave enough to be in positions where they can say, what, I see somebody who look like me, I'm going to take a chance and give him a job. I'm going to take a chance and put him in a position that he or she can grow. A lot of us feel like, oh, we don't want to take the chance because what if the person fail? We end up looking bad or whatever it is. But how about we be optimistic and say, what if the person succeeds? Because so listen, and life is chances, and you see it all the time, right? I'm sure we see it in a lot of our different jobs. A lot of people get jobs that a lot of people who don't look like us get jobs that they have no business having, and everybody knows it. But guess
Yep.
what? Nobody's scared to put them in those jobs. They just figure, listen, we learn what we have to learn on the go. So
Mhm.
it is what it is.
I think
Somebody ask
it goes
somebody
back to
asking a question there.
oh, sorry. I was saying it goes back to what Nicole was saying. It's a systemic thing where we think we're competing against each other instead of lifting each other up.
Yeah.
That we wanna make sure that we shine a light on us, and then we'll keep our brother down. The other cultures, a lot of the other groups, they actually rise together, and that's something that's not very prevalent in the Black community.
I mean, there's a reason for that, though. I mean, if you think about whenever whenever Black people try to come together as a community, there's a lot of resistance that comes with that. So you end up having to choose between your own survival or the survival of the group. And when you have to make that choice, it's very hard unless you already have the financial means, or if you're in some type of position of power. But you see it just with things like the 1619 project. Why would they be going so hard to prevent that kind of information to be taught in schools, right?
Mhm.
So that's on a grand scale, but on the smaller scale is if I decide I'm going to hire 3 Black people, I'm going to get some resistance for that. And
Oh
people
yeah.
don't even know why they're resisting overtly. They couldn't tell you the reason, but it's really because that's the way the structure was designed. It's designed so that it's, oh no, this is a threat now. So I don't think it's a good idea. So I don't usually fault when I see things like that happen because I understand why it happens. I mean, you want more of us to be have a little bit more courage, but when you're thinking about your bills and your family, and you're like, I gotta, who are you gonna pick? You're gonna pick your security
Yep.
over taking a chance on somebody that looks like you, especially if there's a chance they might fail. It's a very difficult decision. So I do understand it. I don't ever take it personal. I just try to do my part when I can, and I'll deal with the resistance. you know
So So that's one thing that I've noticed with black culture, especially the music aspect of it, is that I've noticed that black culture or black musicians are very much open to sharing the culture with other people. You can go back to people like Eminem, you can go back to people like Vanilla Ice, that these guys were, let's say, will welcome with open arms to be part of the R&B rap community, even if they were white, and they didn't just come in, but they were very successful. They had, like, for example, I know Eminem had Dr. Dre behind him his entire career, even if he was white, even if he maybe saw things slightly differently, at least from the beginning. But it's kind of weird that when a black guy tries
Mm-hmm.
to go into the music or the art form of the other culture, there's always some sort of pushback. And I'm trying to figure out why this keeps happening, because it takes me back to Little Nas X when he put out that song. And that song came out and nobody knew about it until I can't remember his name, but a very popular um, country singer did a verse with him,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point where country music fans were saying that this song is not country simply because it's not a white guy singing it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm like, this is why there is still so much division,
Yes.
even when black people open up and welcome other people to experience their life, their lifestyle, their music, their art form. We can't even dabble with theirs. Anybody has anything to say on that? Because that bothers me a lot.
I mean, it's the same. The structure is still the same. I think what happens is that the first of all, the country artists that know anything about anything knows that a lot of country music started from black musicians and it was appropriated by white culture, right? So they're aware of that, but the thing is now it's been appropriated and they can monetize on it. Now it becomes theirs. It's their music. And then as generations pass and they own the music and have kept black people out of it, like when Charlie Pride died, you didn't see this whole big thing about it, but he'd been in country music for so long.
Right.
And so the younger generations look at it like, oh no, you're taking our music, right? And I think and that happens in all genres of music. It happens, like you said, with Eminem, but it's because who owns these media companies? Who owns the record labels? It's who I'm gonna push. If I can find a rapper that's white that can that's equally as good or better than the average black rapper, I'm going to monetize on that because I'm going to make money. And the reason I'm going to make money is who's buying it and
Mm-hmm.
who's going to buy more of it. If Eminem, I mean, white people, they're going to buy Eminem. He doesn't even have to be that good. The fact that he's good is like a bonus, right? So if you're a business person like Dr. Dre is, he already knows that. He already knows. He's like, I'm gonna make so much money promoting a white rapper that's actually very good. Why would he not do that? And that's it's the same structure, the same things that you see in society. It
Mm-hmm.
transfers over into all aspects of life, into music, into media, into the workplace. That's what you see, and it just repeats itself.
It
Really?
does. It opens up a market for them if you put it that way. So going from like the whole, it's a financial benefit for them, and the whole if Dr. Dre is now, and I say this too about when people have the conversation about Oprah and how she's advanced in Black culture. I say she can't relate to the Black cause anymore. She's not being the average Black person for so many years. So people like Dr. Dre and other, I would say, prominent Black artists, they relate more to like you said, the culture that is dominant, the white culture, because they want to be wealthy. They are wealthy, and that's what they know. So it's a self-serving socialization, I would say, of people over time.
That's right. That's what it is.
Good
Absolutely.
evening, everyone.
Oh, that's Shane.
Yeah, hi.
Welcome, Shane.
I'm good, man. What's going on?
What's on your mind?
I want to ask a question to Miss Roberts a little while because
Mhm.
you seem to be well versed in the knowledge about how the whole American system works. And basically, I wanted to ask you, do you agree that America is designed to remind you of
Mhm.
your blackness before your personhood? And by that, I mean, pretty much before I moved here, I just recently moved here to go to school and stuff.
Mhm.
All my decisions were made based on like, will I get in or will I be successful based on the merit of the person that I am? I never considered my blackness as a factor before that. Like I knew I was a black person,
Mhm.
but it was never a factor in any of my decision making and anything. And I notice right now that
Mhm.
even sometimes subconsciously I start thinking of things and I don't know, they say it's in the media and the media perpetuates fear in people and whatnot, but it's like I just find myself now making a lot of decisions and a lot of things that I think about is, well, I have to consider the fact that I am black and this might affect me differently. So I just
Mhm. Well, some people don't agree when I make this kind of statement, but this is a world issue. This is not an American issue. I think America took it to another level, but anti-black ideology is across the globe, and everything in this country is about race. Even if you don't see it, even if it's not overt, even if it's not, the blatant stuff that you see, like the Confederate flag, and even if it's not that, it's there. And the reason why it's there, unfortunately, is because it's all connected. And even when we try to separate it out and we want to believe that we're getting things because of our merit and because of, you know, who we are as a person and our character, the country wasn't designed that way. It has never been designed to not incorporate race into the equation. So even though people may deny it, it doesn't mean it's not there, right? You could be ignorant to something and still have to deal with the consequences of it. So I know it feels like a burden when you have to notice it, but I think that it shouldn't stop you from, still working hard and still trying to achieve your goals. But the reality is, race is always going to be a factor. Whether it works in your favor or not in your favor, it is going to be a factor. The laws in this country were built based on racism. They were. And even though there's laws against racist behavior, those laws are designed in a such a way where you have to be able to prove that someone actually did something racist against you. And that's difficult to do when it's ingrained in the culture, right? Because somebody could do something and they could turn around right away and say, "Oh, I'm not racist." But the truth is, the people who have privilege and benefit can really not be the people to tell you whether they're racist or not. That doesn't even make logical sense. So, I guess that's the downside of it, but that's just the reality. And I think, and the reason why I say it's a world problem is because the world has been affected by racism in some way, whether they were part of the slave trade, whether they benefited off of it, whether they may not have had segregation in their country, but they may not have allowed certain class of people who tended to be black people to not be able to get citizenship or make money or work in government jobs or all of those things. I mean, it's embedded, and that's the unfortunate part, but that's the reality. So I
I
hope
wanted to,
that.
good night. I wanted to drop one point on maybe the issue of the Caribbean and bridging that gap between us as Black people in the Caribbean and Black in America. And I think part of one thing we have to realize is the mere fact that we're saying that
you only like, realize that you only become aware of your blackness once you come to America. We need to see that as one of the problems. And for all of the praise that we keep on giving our education system, that fact that fact kind of highlights the point that our education system may not be as amazing as we give it credit for. Because if we growing up in a society, in a region where the people before us. So I'm going back and forth between three books right now. One of them is the autobiography of Eugenia Charles, who was the first female prime minister of Dominica and in the Caribbean. One of them is the autobiography of Eric Williams, who led Trinidad and Tobago into independence, and
Mhm.
Ta-Nehisi Coates' We Were 8 Years in Power. And through those three books, there are like common characters. You can see Eugenia Charles drawing parallels to stuff like people like Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver, who her father took somewhat of like an example by, because he would have met them when he enrolled his children into school. Eric Williams, he was very big on recognizing our identity as Black people in the Caribbean and realizing that post colonialism, even after independence, we were still stuck in certain ways and stuck having to do certain things just because in our own country, just because of the fact that we were Black and considered like lesser. If you even look at stuff like agriculture, the farmers who were native to places like Trinidad and Tobago and that stuff, the locals were not the ones who had the big money crops. Big money crops were still being held by the white men, the expats who lived in the country at the time. And even in terms of how we progress to having the whole Black versus coolie kind of strained relationships in places like Trinidad and Guyana, that stemmed from the fact that Black people and the Indians were treated so much lesser in those islands when you compare them to the white expats who were basically still in charge of everything, even post independence. So as Caribbean people, like, we have to like start realizing that there is this big gap in our education system. Like we may be taught a lot of science and math and all of that stuff, but when it comes to history, the history that you're taught in school, like growing up, you're taught the history of your colonizers. Very little is taught pre-colonization, stuff about slavery, and very little is taught post-independence. And post-independence is where we can actually see like the racial like struggles that we are still facing like in the Caribbean. The talk of reparations, that is not reparations in the Caribbean is not too different or too separate from the reparations that are being asked for in the US, because in the Caribbean, like, we are responsible for the Britain that it is today. They built that wealth on the backs of like our work, and our work as Black people down there in the region, labor that they got for free. And then now we are being asked to do better, and we have to fall on the IMF schemes and all of that stuff through stuff that wasn't our own fault. Like we could compare when they freed the slaves and then they send them out into the world and tell them, okay, go be great now. Basically, right. After independence, that was what they did to us. They gave us independence with nothing in our pockets, not a dollar. And then they tell you, go be great. And even today, there are only 2 islands in the Caribbean who are republics. Only now Barbados decided to try to be a republic. So now in a lot of the islands of the Caribbean, the Queen of England is still like the head of is still, they still have a governor general that still represents the Queen. All of those things are what they neo-colonism, all these kinds of things that still keep us in a mindset that like we are somewhat lesser and unable to take care of our own affairs, like as if you guys not that smart, you can't do it. Simple things like not having agreeing on our own court system. Some Caribbean islands still have like the Privy Council as their final courts. Even our examination system, now we're moving towards more people recognizing CAPE instead of A levels, stuff we pull down from Britain, even some of our laws we just adopt from what they gave us, and
Even
it's
our money.
even our money, like, it's it's still today in 2021, it's still a lot of what they gave us because they didn't think what we had was good enough, and we have to realize
It's
that.
also it's also, when you see when a lot of the Caribbean islands became independent, it was so many years after Haiti. And the reason for that is because of how Haiti was treated after they beat the French. What happened to their country, right? They did the same thing like they did to the Black Panther Party. They got some black people to work against their country, to infiltrate them, to become dictatorships. And then they literally just demoralized the entire country's government system, their monetary system. And then they had to pay money to France,
Yeah.
right? And for hundreds of years. So other countries saw that and they were like, okay, we're just going to wait until they allow us to get our freedom. Because if we do it on our own,
You
we're
wouldn't be
going
able
to
to
be
pay for it.
penalized. Yeah, we're going to be penalized financially.
Oh, yeah, so we
Because
have to,
the slaves were seen as property.
Correct.
Right. So
Correct.
that's
pay
why
us back for our property.
That's
that's
right.
why the fact that we only now realize it after moving like to America, that's not something that we should even like be looking for sympathy for or wear as a badge of honor. I think even as Caribbean people, like, we need to make an effort to know our history. Like, this is written. Like, these are our forefathers, the people who built the Caribbean as it is today. Eric Williams, Eugenia Charles. These past leaders, these people, they have put it down in writing. It is there in literature. We have to make it our business to be aware of these things and stop just walking around and say, like, well, in Dominica, I never felt like I was a different person. But just go back, just talk to your grandparents, talk to, like, if you're maybe just your great grandparents, go to like the museum, just read one book, and you'll see how much more connected we are than you actually think. Because it was a big surprise to me that I would pick up a book from, talking about Eugenia Charles, and here I'm reading about George Washington Carver and these guys that I came across in the United States. So it says a lot that if they knew it then, if they were very well acquainted with these people in the past and they related that to their own fights in the Caribbean, we should have picked up from that, and it shouldn't be at a stage now where we are ignorant to those things. And if that is the stage that we are, then that in itself is a problem, and we need to recognize that it's a problem and start facing that.
Yeah, Roger, I get what you're saying, but also, I mean, many people like you are very interested in the historical aspect of these things, right? A lot of people are not necessarily invested that much, right? So really, like you're saying, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, my response to that is I shouldn't have to necessarily go look for all these things, right? Because I learn about all these other people without me having to go dig it up, right? So why is it that I can't learn about Eugenia Charles? And I mean, Eugenia Charles was on my own island, like, and going through school, like, yes, you hear about her, but the most if you're not paying attention to politics, so you're not necessarily involved, you don't hear about the relationships that she had, and the things that she had to do to get to where she was at. The most you hear is that, well, she was the Caribbean Iron Lady, like, compared to Margaret Thatcher, and those kind of things. But growing up, was there a history class that I did that taught me about the first female prime minister in the Caribbean who was from my own island? Right?
Well,
Well,
that's
I,
what
like,
I'm
well,
saying.
doing. I think
It might be. That's why I'm saying that is why we need to open up the discussion about, well, is our education system as amazing as we tout it to be? Sure, clearly there are gaps in it, there are shortcomings, and there are things that need like to be addressed. Because if we're not learning these things in school, then that is a problem. If we,
right.
that
Who's writing the books?
kind of history
Who's
is.
writing history?
but I also think
History means what? His story.
his story. I
No,
also think
normally the people who are alive are the ones who write it.
I also think it's a political thing though, because in modern day history of politics,
Hello, be
ev-
careful, eh?
every new politician or most new politician seeks to eradicate the previous politician, right? Whether the person was did good or they did bad. So politicians tend to not care about making the teachings of certain previous politicians as important as them being in office right now. Where the government, like you go to Dominica, there's a museum in Dominica. How much information does it have about Dame Eugenia Charles?
Mhm.
How often does our government documents
Mhm.
what our politicians did? And that's the only way the generations to come are going to learn about it. If you look at America, for example, America has documented stuff from certain presidents that they want, but we don't even hear that much about George Bush, senior or the one after him. We don't hear that much about that guy. We don't hear that much about Bill Clinton. Only thing we hear about Bill Clinton is what, right? But we always hear about Honest Abe.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't want to say that. At least for Dominic, I wouldn't want to say that stuff is not documented. The issue is bringing the documentation to where it needs to be. Even here in the US, I'm sure there are people who this is their day job to archive stuff. There are historians, librarians. A lot of this stuff can be found on a library shelf. Anything you want can either be found on a library shelf or a Google search.
Mhm.
The issue is, why is it not on the school benches? Why is it not where
But
it needs to
but
be?
So I
why?
have
But
a
who? But
question
but who has to
on that
approve those
thought.
things, though,
Yeah,
Rajiv? Who
that
who
was my
makes
question. Whose
right? Whose
responsibility is it?
responsibility is it to make those things available?
And yes, that is the responsibility of the state. But I was also
Or of
drawing
us?
the point that when the fact that it is not there, we should stop going around and saying that, oh well, we didn't realize that until we come here or whatnot, because we have to realize that is not something to be proud of if the information was there.
No,
That's
but
the
But,
Rajiv,
but you
again,
can't. But you can't blame people for thinking like
what
that,
I'm
because look, you're
what I'm
saying it.
trying
The
to
information isn't there.
what I'm trying to say, Rajiv, again, is not that, again, is not, I don't think anybody necessarily being proud about it. It's more of like a level of, well, I didn't know, listen, a lot of things my grandfather used to say, if you're born in Dominica and never leave Dominica, you go straight to heaven. You don't go, you Dominica, like, you don't know anything, you know. So yes, a lot of people, like, if you don't travel, if you don't see the world, and that's why I think it's important. Even with your little kids, you take them to other countries, you show them
Mhm.
how other people live. They see all those things, so they start asking questions, and they start developing their own level of inquisition. That's the word I want to use, and start finding out certain things that they're interested in, and
Mhm.
whatever, right?
I agree.
In terms of the education system, I mean, well, I think when you talk about the level of education, I don't know if it's necessarily getting into history. I think you're more talking about, English, math. Dude, when I first came to school here and I went to my college class, and the professor say, "Oh, you're allowed to bring a cheat sheet." I was like, "What? Cheat sheet?"
not back home.
I say, "What?" I can't believe I can put all the answers on a paper and bring it to the test. Never did that in my life. So, we're talking about those levels, right? You're talking about a kid being 7, 8 years old, moving here, and already being at maybe a 10th grade, ninth grade level of math, and not having to stay back in class, like, so I think when you're talking about the education, I think it's more that aspect. But, like Chrissy and Hadley saying, and I really like that point Hadley made, right? You're talking about um politicians, right? And that's another episode we need to do, right? The aspect of people supporting people and not ideas, right? I mean, you put somebody in position to do something for you, right? If you get hired to do a job and you don't do the job, guess what? You get fired.
Mhm.
So politicians, to me, the people who make careers out of being politicians, They need to be people who are constantly working for the people, not working for themselves, right? Not doing stuff to make their family rich, and everybody knows it.
And
But
in the
everybody say,
next
"Oh,
episode of Talk the Ting.
I don't know about next episode, you know."
Live
But
advertisement.
you know, it's just really, and and let's not get it twisted, man. I mean, we talk about Black Americans and African Americans, and we talk about all these things. We see some of the same issues that we see in America. We can relate to a lot of them in Dominica, because
Mhm.
the Haitians come home and people have a problem with them. Oh, they're taking out jobs. Oh, they're going on the market. Oh, they're doing this. Oh, they're doing that. But we know that majority of our people lazy. They don't want to do nothing. So,
Kalinago people have
right?
been,
Exactly. So like we have the same issues that we
yeah,
have, the same issues that we have in America, we have it in Dominica, right? And Caribbean on a whole, right? Why is it so difficult? If I'm a Dominican and I say, well, I want to go to Trinidad, what's the problem?
I think
Or if a Trinity person want to come to Dominica to move or work or whatever it is, right? I mean, those things were not that simple, right? You look at, I mean, bring it back to, I mean, I'm a real massive sports fan. Everybody knows it, right? You look at the West Indies cricket. When it's a Bajan administration, you have 7 or 8 Bajan players. When it's a Jamaican administration, you have 7 or 8 Jamaicans. When it's a Trini administration, you have 7 or 8 Trinis, right? Although people know in the Caribbean that there might be players from the smaller islands who are playing better than the Jamaicans or the Trinidadians or the Bajans, but so everybody does what they think is best for themselves. You know, my point is, when are we gonna get to the point where we are impartial?
I think the I
Wrong is
think the
wrong, right
problem
is right.
I think the
You know?
problem here is that we are always willing to see the differences between us and the other person because we think looking for the similarities is too difficult. So that's why we look at the Haitians and we have something to say about the Haitians. That's why we may feel we may think twice about trying to get a job in Jamaica or Trinidad because we don't a lot of times we don't see how we can benefit each other. And like Nicole said, it's something that we are taught some way, somehow, whether directly or indirectly, it's something that we are taught. So we need to definitely find a way to unlearn that
Relearn.
Relearn it.
and relearn something else.
Yeah,
Yep.
we have to remember that if you're living in this country, I mean, it's to the point that Hadley made earlier. No one cares where you're from. They do not. It's that's irrelevant. You're just a black person. And if you look at the black people that have been killed by police, a lot of them are immigrants or children of immigrants. They're not black Americans. They're rarely black Americans, maybe in the South more, but when you come to the big cities and stuff like that, a lot of those people are immigrants or children of immigrants. And part of the reason I think it is because, if you were raised in this country long enough, you kind of know how the police are going to treat you. But if
Right.
you come from another country, you think you got the same rights as everybody else, and then you
Mhm.
quickly learn that you do not, and the police act accordingly. So that's why, the St. Lucian the St. Lucian guy was a different situation. It was more of she saw a black person in her house and she killed them, right? I mean, that's really what it was. But if you think of Abner Louima, if you think of any of those people, they raid the wrong house in the Bronx. Those are Caribbean people. Those are they're the ones getting harmed by police. So it's not just the black Americans, and I think that's why we have to have some awareness around the class structure, but then also the caste system.
Mhm.
That's what I mean, that's what we're living in. That's what you're trying to navigate. And that's what people in the Caribbean try to navigate. They're trying to navigate a class system first, but they also navigate a caste system, especially the ones that have people from Asia living in them because they come from countries that are designed that way. And
We
that's what
have
you're
somebody else. We have somebody else on the call. Caller, you live. Caller, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kola.
Hello. Okay, I guess the caller is a little nervous. All right, continue.
Well, that was it. That was my point about, to what the point that Hadley made, that when he realized that, the St. Lucian guy was killed by the police officer, when she thought he was in her home, it's like, no, it's been our people for the most part. If especially if you're living above the Mason-Dixon line, it's usually immigrants that are bucking up against the police.
All right, guys, we've been here for an hour and a half. Wow,
Oh, sure, yeah.
time goes quick. Time goes quick. But this was a very interesting discussion. I'm pretty sure we could maybe stay here till midnight talking.
Yeah.
But some of us have to actually, try and pay some bills tomorrow, So I
Back in
appreciate
the
it. You guys
system.
joining on, man. I appreciate Nicole, Shane, Chrissy, joining Dexter. Although Dexter, it was, one day and what's going on, you know what I'm saying? But I still appreciate him, ad libbing and, joining in discussion. And I think this should be a recurring discussion, and it needs to be something that we should not shy away from, and not just have the discussion amongst ourselves,
Hmm.
right? Have the discussion amongst people who don't look like us, people who are willing to learn and understand, and you know, let's not push people away when they want to learn about our
Learn
history,
more.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they made a comment about accent and stuff or something like that. And I say, I was one quick story. I was at work once. So my uncle called me. Every time my uncle called me, he only speak patois, Creole, right? So I'm walking down, and I'm on the phone with my uncle, and I'm talking in Creole, and this one mechanic, he stopped and he looked at me, and he's like what? You know? So I get off the phone, and he's like, how you? I didn't know you could speak Creole. So then we go into the whole thing, and he tells me like his parents, his mother's Haitian, and I think his father from Trinidad or something. But it was just interesting because I'm at the time thinking like, oh, let me, like Nicole say, assimilate and make myself easy to understand, and yank and all that stuff. And the guy, they really like that you speak with an accent. You're different, right? But no, when I speak on the phone and they say, oh, your voice changed, I say my voice didn't change. I say you have an accent, I don't. But yeah, man, I definitely enjoy the conversation. We're gonna be back in 2 weeks. We will be coming out with some flyers, and we'll try and come out with the flyers a little earlier than we normally do, so people are more aware of what dates and stuff like that. Um, we are currently working on loading all of our past episodes on YouTube, so we will be releasing at least the first 5, 6 of them in the next couple of days. So if you
we
guys
have
want to
we
go
have
back and
we have 7 already that will be made public. I'm actually gonna do it right now as we speak. So
all right, so
after
if you
this
guys
call,
hear
we'll
that,
have our first 7
yep,
episodes available.
we'll be ready.
Um,
And the other thing is that from the next time we come on, we will be streaming through YouTube. Trying to move up in the world a little bit. So we'll be streaming through YouTube.
Well, I get like about 10 messages saying, okay, I'm not on Facebook for the time. I say, okay.
Yeah, man. I love people giving me those messages. How do I watch? I'm not on Facebook.
I don't-
How do I watch? I'm not on Facebook. So we try to make it a little bit more accessible for anybody who wants to go back and watch the
Diversity and
episodes.
inclusion.
Huh?
okay,
Yeah, man.
so
I don't know if Hadley or Raj have anything before we close down.
we will drop the link of our YouTube channel in the chat that's going on right now. So y'all could click
Subscribe.
on that link, subscribe to our
notification
channel, hit that notification button
button.
so you will be notified when we drop a new video. I'm gonna try to make sure that every single episode is available before we do our first YouTube stream. So check it out. We will still be sharing the the YouTube live on the Facebook channel, so you could always come and find it there, whatnot. But yeah,
So Hadley, when are we doing the politics episode? I know you're looking forward to that one.
when you're ready, my boy.
Oh,
When you're
man.
ready.
I'm looking for trouble, right?
Trouble.
I think you are, but if you want to
Well,
look for
well,
trouble.
when you do that episode, I'll be working late. Okay.
Hopefully, I have my ID card in time.
Oh boy.
Fellas, fellas,
Oh boy.
fellas,
All
fellas,
right,
Fred.
fellas. But listen, we enjoy everybody who was tuned in tonight. We definitely appreciate you guys tuning in. Um, we are working on some real important issues that we could talk about. That again, we're just trying to hit some topics and things that as three young black men, immigrants, there's a lot of things that we didn't know and we learning. And as we learning, we're trying to give more, information. So stuff like social security and the importance of it, stuff like money management, all of those type of things that we need to be talking about as minorities or black people. Um, and sharing as much information as we can, you know. So one other important thing is I know a lot of people move here. When you move here, sometimes if you don't have the help, you don't know what your next step should be, right? You don't know how to go to school. You don't know if you should be get a credit card. You don't know what you should do, right? So we all of us been through those things. So we will be talking about those type of things and trying to just help people, and just try to learn more and help bring up our community. All right. So with that said, we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.